I am an actor through and through. Like I have never really done anything else.
Mhm.
Um, I love it so much. And I consider myself, I like doing these kinds of interviews and talking to people like Backstage where, real actors read or listen or watch because that's who I feel like I am.
I'm Susie Waltman. I'm an editor at Backstage, and I'm here with the one and only Elisabeth Moss. Thank you so much for being here today. Obviously, you've built an incredible career, bringing so many complex, emotionally rich characters to life. But before we dive into the craft itself, I was wondering if you could answer a question that I think a lot of actors in our audience often wonder about, which is, again, your characters are often kind of going through it, Peggy's vulnerability, June's entire trauma. And I was wondering kind of how you take care of yourself, both mind and body, after pushing into such intense territory.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I have a couple answers. Um, I don't want to like minimize the work because it's not easy to do,
Mhm.
but I do feel like it is not real.
Mhm.
I just don't know how else to say it. And I don't, even though I am portraying something, I don't go so far as to think that that's actually happened to me. I think that's important. Like it is pretend and it's elective, no one has actually forced me into these situations. Like I've signed up for it. So it's an elective job that I'm very, very, very fortunate to do. And like, this is something I have loved. Acting is something I've loved since I was, 6 years old and probably earlier. And I love it. And I feel so fortunate to do it. So I just don't feel like it's traumatic or hard in that way, I guess.
Mhm.
I feel like it's a joy and I love being on set. I love working. It is my happy place. And so I don't feel like it's something I need to take care of myself because of. Or sometimes people ask if it's like, how do you let go of it at the end of the day? And I'm like, I don't feel like I need to. I feel like that was so fulfilling and fun and yes, challenging. It's not like it's easy at all, but it's so rewarding. So that's kind of my answer to that. I know that's not very helpful in the sense of somebody who like does feel like they need to let it go, but I
I
guess
think it
my
helps.
advice would be to just remember how much you can enjoy it and how much fun you can have with it. And remember that it is such a lucky place to be. And it's such a great, cool job. Like you literally get to go to all these different kinds of places, work with
Mhm.
all different kinds of people, and pretend that something is happening for a living.
Obviously, you have incredible on-screen chemistry with so many of your co-stars. I mean, just looking at Handmaid's Tale, Luke and June, Nick and June, Serena and June. I was wondering if you have a particular approach or process that you and your fellow actors have to kind of create that chemistry.
I think that's the thing about chemistry is it's really hard to create. Like it's something that is kind of either there or it's not. But I feel like the best thing you can do is hire great actors. Most great actors can have chemistry with another actor. Like it just kind of is part of what you have to do. So I feel like when you have actors like OT and Max and Yvonne and Brad and Samira, and I mean, it could go on, every single actor that is on our show, it's not something you're worried about. They're just so good that you're just having the best time getting to play with them? So I feel like I've never had an experience of working with a good actor and not having chemistry because that's just there.
So obviously you've been on both sides of the camera, especially with Handmaids. I think you did the first two, and then you're doing, or you did the final two of the last.
Yeah, the first two and the last two of the last seasons. I think I've done 10 total.
Okay, very nice. Well, I guess both what is the experience like, transitioning from actor to director, and then also How does, having this kind of chemistry with your fellow actors, does that inform your directorial choices or your intimate knowledge of the character herself or anything like that?
I think the first thing that I realized when I started directing was how important a part of the process acting is.
Hmm.
Because I'm not a method actor, because I would say I have so much fun doing it that I don't consider it work. So I look at it through this certain lens as an actor. And then when I started directing, I realized that you can have all of these plans, you can do all of this preparation, you can have the most complicated camera rig, the most interesting idea for a shot like you can possibly imagine, and all that really ends up mattering is the actor in the frame and the performance that they're giving. And I remember it happening really clearly with Ann Dowd on my first episode, which is episode 403, and the first episode I ever directed. And I remember we had some really great shots in that episode, some really fun stuff that we had cooked up, me and Stuart Biddlecombe, my DP. Really fun stuff. And I got in a room with her, and her performance was so beautiful. And it was kind of like, oh, this is the best part. This is the best part of it. So I think I have more respect for acting now as a director than I did even before. I had a love for it, but an understanding of how important it is something that has definitely come from directing, which
Hmm.
is really interesting. And then as far as the transition to directing, it's so much more organic than you would think for me. Uh, Very much a lateral move. I've always been very involved in things behind the camera. I've always been very interested in them. I've always been very curious about what's happening. Um, Jane Campion actually put it the best way. She described if I have a process, which I don't think I do, but like if I do, she described it in this really great way that I was like, oh, that's what it is. She said, I like to know exactly where the box is that I'm playing in. What exactly is the frame of the box? And then just let me play in it.
Hmm.
And so I've always wanted to know what's the box? What are we shooting? What are the shots? Why? What's happening? Why are we here? Why this location? Blah, blah, blah. And so stepping into a position where I just kind of had more of a position of saying it, because as an actor, you got to be careful sometimes. You want the director to direct.
Right.
Oh, you don't want to take over that position. It's very important that they have that position. And I love when they have that position. I'm working with Leslie Linka Glatter right now on Imperfect Women, this new limited show for Apple. And I said to her, I was like, because she's like, I'm so excited you're a director. I'm so excited I get to work with you as a director and like, talk to you as a director. And I was like, absolutely. And I'm so here for you. And I love that part. But like, just so you know, I am an actor and you are the director. And that's what we're doing right now. Like, I am not going to direct your episode. Like, I want you to do that?
Right.
So I think it's really important to know that when you're an actor, if you've been a director, um,
Mhm.
that, everybody's got to wear their hat.
The shots right now.
Yeah, exactly. But that said, it definitely is something that I have always had an interest in, and just so it didn't feel like that big of a move. It didn't feel like that different of a place to be,
Mhm.
you know?
Would you say taking on that perspective, because you said it allowed you to grow, more respect for acting itself. Like, would you say that it was sort of a more that allowed you to have a bird's eye view of it, or that you were really getting more into the nitty-gritty of it, or kind of both?
I think just realizing how nothing else really matters at the end of the day except for the performance.
Mhm.
Because you can have the most interesting shot in the world, and if the actor isn't good in the frame, it doesn't work. And
Mhm.
you can have the most simple shot planned, and the actor makes it the most transcendent experience for you as an audience member. So I think it's that really. It's the fact that that ends up honestly being the most important thing. It
Mhm.
really does. And like, it sounds so crazy to say that after like, I guess it would have been 30 years of acting before I started directing. But it took me directing to really realize that.
I get that. I feel like again, allowing you to kind of perceive it from a different perspective is absolutely
Yeah,
create that different shift of point of view. Uh,
sure.
yeah. What would you say is the best note that you've had from a director? And then if you want to answer this one, the worst note?
Um, okay, the best note. I don't know if there's a particular note, but there's a style of directing that I really like that I remember I first noticed with John Slattery on Mad Men.
Mhm.
I love when a director comes up to you and asks questions. I love when it feels like you're having a conversation. So it ends up not even feeling like a note.
Mhm.
You know, of course, there's nothing wrong with that. There's honestly nothing wrong with stuff coming up for me anyway. Some actors don't like it. I don't mind if you come up and say faster, slower, you know, louder, quieter, whatever. I don't mind that at all. I'm very open to any kind of direction. But the kind of direction I think is really helpful to me is like when a director comes up to you and is like, "What do you think?" Like Slattery would come up and he'd be like, "So what do you think like Peggy thought about blah blah blah?" And it would make you think and it would make you go like, "Oh yeah, I mean, I guess like," and then you'd have like a conversation about it and then see he'd walk away and you'd realize, oh, now I have this new idea, and I think that might have been what he intended. You know,
It's almost like Socratic.
yeah, so like that I love that kind of directing and he was the first one of the first people I noticed doing it and maybe because he's an actor. I do think actors make really good directors. Um, but I like that. I like when it's a conversation when it feels not like can you do this or do that? It feels like, what do you think about this? And how do you feel like this happened? And what do you think happened yesterday? And just that kind of conversation I find really helpful.
Mhm. Did
And
you
then
have
worst, honestly, the worst is just being negative for me. So
mhm.
the worst is just a director being like, I didn't like that, or
That
which
was
doesn't
bad?
really happen it doesn't happen very often, but it can. Or a director, what's also not helpful is a director saying, oh, I like the one before that better. And you're like, okay.
Why did you let me do the scene?
And yeah, I guess we'll just,
Right.
okay, that was a waste of all of our time then. Like it
Mhm.
happens super rarely, but like I think they think they're being helpful because they think they're being honest,
Right.
but it's not. I don't need to know which was your favorite. It's fine.
Yeah.
We'll all visit it in the editing room anyway.
Did you have any characters in, let's say, throughout your whole career that particularly like flummoxed you or a particular scene that you really had to like get into it of, why, what are they doing? Why are they thinking? How would they act in this sentence?
Think for me, yes, of course. Not any one particular character, but probably at some point with every character I've played, there's that there you run into, hopefully not too many times, but like you definitely can run into this like, I don't understand what this moment is, and I don't understand what I'm supposed to do here. It tends to happen earlier on, I feel like, when you don't know the character as well, you're not sure what you're doing yet. Um, when that happens, can be kind of scary. And I tend to just go back to what do I do? I tend to just go back to my instincts. Like, I feel like if I can't figure it out, I'm thinking too hard about it and I'm over intellectualizing it and I'm overthinking it. And so just kind of follow my instincts a little bit. And that tends to land me in the right place where at least I'm being honest, you
Mhm.
know? Um, Trying to force myself into a lane that I don't feel like is honest, I can't do. Leslie Lincoln Glatter literally just said this yesterday she said it about me and Kerry Washington, the shows with Kerry Washington, and as well as many amazing actors. And she said, you and Kerry can't lie. You can't lie. Like and she's absolutely right. If something doesn't feel right, I can't do it.
Mhm.
So sometimes that's a return to the material. Sometimes that's a return to like the scene doesn't work, the line doesn't work. Let's talk to the writer about changing the line or shifting it a little bit. I always think it should feel good. It should feel right. And I know when it doesn't feel right. And that's when I need to like do a little bit more work on it or let it go. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
like I feel like for acting, for me, there's never a hard and fast rule. I feel
Mhm.
like it so depends on the situation. And sometimes a difficult moment that you can't figure out or can't seem to get right or can't seem to understand, sometimes that requires drilling down and changing the material or looking at the lines, or sometimes it requires going the other way and just being like, screw it. Let's just do whatever and see what happens.
Mhm.
Or
Have you ever had one where you had that feeling about it and you tried to drill down to the material and have it changed, but you had pushback against that?
probably more in the earlier days.
No, like she knows what she's doing.
I would say now, obviously, I've done a fair amount of work, and so I do have a voice in the
Mhm.
room,
Mhm.
for sure. I also tend to only work with people that I feel like are open to that kind of collaboration.
Mhm.
Um, I just don't feel like it's fun to work any other way.
Right.
Um, I also then, but again, like I said, there are no hard and fast rules because then you run into the situation where you're working with, where you're working on a David Mamet play or Sorkin or Matt Weiner and the and those writers' rooms and and all of the incredible writers that were on those shows, on West Wing and on Mad Men. And you don't want to change a word. It's
Right.
so good. Why would you ever want to say anything else?
Mhm.
So there's that situation too.
Well, then maybe that feels true in a different sense then for your character.
Yeah, but I would say let me revise a little bit what I said though, because I do feel like I definitely can still get pushback. It's just I feel um like it's not, and sometimes that's welcome because sometimes you're not right. Like sometimes you're like, I don't like this line, or I don't like. I remember listening to, and sometimes you say, I don't like this line, and then the writer's like, well, it means this, that, and the other thing, and you're like, oh, okay, and it turns out you didn't understand it.
Mhm.
you know the goal is to just understand it. I remember listening to an interview with Meryl Streep, and she talked about how there was all, and I'm going to misquote the hell out of this, but what I got from it basically was that she was talking about there's always one scene or one line or one word or something that she would struggle with in a project, in a film, and if she could figure out that scene or that line, she could unlock the character.
Mhm.
So I think sometimes you have to be open to that. Like maybe there's a reason you don't understand this moment and you need to figure it out. And if you do, you'll figure out something that you need to know for the character.
Mhm.
It's an art form. It's not a science.
I love that. So I'm actually I'm like a literary scholar. So I feel like the idea
Oh,
of
wow.
analysis to like really dive into a character really appeals to me.
Good. Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, your words are Margaret Atwood says a word after a word after a word is power, right? And the words that you have they are your tools. They're your
Mhm.
weapons. They are obviously sometimes there's moments that don't have dialogue, but the words in the script that describe that moment, those are your tools. So it's very, very important.
Are you currently reading, watching, listening to anything that you're particularly enjoying or want to talk about?
I'm obsessed with podcasts, so I'm almost always listening to a podcast. Not on set actually, weirdly, because I find them too like interesting or distracting. But like
Mhm.
if I'm doing, you know, errands or chores or like, walking around or whatever. So I am always listening to podcasts. I guess I could look and see what I'm listening to. Literally was just listening to Mike Birbiglia's podcast. I don't know
Oh
if
yeah. That's the Sleepwalk with Me or
Yes,
that guy.
yes.
Okay. Mhm.
He's brilliant. So I've been listening to him, obviously Armchair Expert and Smartless. Everybody loves those. I love Julia Louis-Dreyfus's podcast and Amy Poehler's podcast. Yeah, I'm just a big, big podcast person, as is the rest of the world. Um, uh, Watching. Oh, I just watched Four Seasons, which was great on Netflix.
Mhm.
Oh, The Studio. I loved The Studio. I watched that. Severance. I'm literally just like looking at disclaimer. I'm literally just looking at my history here. Yeah, I mean I love television and I love watching things. So I tend to always be watching something.
Mhm. So
Yeah.
no Steve Carell, but are there other actors that you're particularly like you'll watch anything they do or you're particularly starstruck by?
Olivia Colman is, I think, for me, the greatest living actress. Um, I just think she's everything she does is so brilliant. I just think she's so beautiful to watch. And I've heard is a really nice person to boot, which is lovely. So anything Olivia Colman does, I love comedies. I love, like I said, I love Hacks. I love the half hour format. I love single camera half hour shows. Uh that's kind of what I most enjoy watching, unless there's something like a severance or a disclaimer where it feels, of course, like a major event
Mhm.
that we all should watch. But otherwise, I love that.
Do you have like a go-to comfort show?
Probably The Office.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right? I mean, I feel like it's The Office. Like we all, it's one of those shows you watch like once a year. Veep, I love Veep.
Oh yeah.
I watch that once a year. I love The Comeback. Ugh, Lisa
Actually, I've seen that
Kudrow
one.
on that show. Oh my God, she is so brilliant.
Mhm. Many of our subscribers are actors, of course, of various stages of their careers who deeply admire you and your trajectory.
Yes.
So what is the one piece of advice that you wish someone had given you when you were first starting out as an actor? And I know you were six, but if you you could go back and have a little more sentience at the time.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I am an actor through and through. Like I have never really done anything else.
Mhm.
Um, I love it so much. And I consider myself, I like doing these kinds of interviews and talking to people like Backstage where, real actors read or listen or watch because that's who I feel like I am. I have had more years of not having a job and more years of struggling or more years of, relying on residuals to pay the bills than I have had years of not having that. And I've had way more years of doing the jobs that I booked than having a choice. So I still consider myself the person who is doing the jobs that I auditioned for. You know what I mean? I think of myself like that. So I don't know about advice. Um, I feel like, God, I think the only thing I could say is just it's a wonderful job. It's so much fun and it's not easy to continue to work and it's not easy to book jobs and it's not easy to have success in the field, of course. But if you love it, it's totally worth it. And it's so much fun. And I think that I know probably this is advice that everyone gives, but truly if you love it, don't give up. There's so many people that have made it at different stages of their life and made it in different ways. I love those stories when you see somebody who's 40, 45, 55, 60, having their success and sort of making it quote unquote in a way that the world perceives as success. And I love those stories, you know? So I don't know. That would be the only advice I would give. It is really worth it. So if you really love it, don't give up.
That's great. And actually, I guess you're kind of living out the advice. Like you said, you still think of yourself as
Yeah.
taking the jobs you're audition for. It's sort of this idea of knowing that you're into something beautiful and just
Yeah.
persevering.
Yeah, I still consider like I still feel super lucky that I have a job this summer.
Mhm.
I still think that way.
Sure about the thought, wait, no, I'm Elizabeth Moss.
Oh, no,
Very humble.
definitely not. Definitely not. It's still super weird to me. Like if I see myself on a poster or anything, like I'm still like, that's strange. It's me.
I did
Yeah.
that. Well, you're incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and share insights with Backstage and our readers. Again, your perspective on the craft means a lot, and I know our readers really appreciate your thoughtfulness and candor. And I also appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you. That's very, very kind. I appreciate that.